1986, and we will be inviting the leaders from various regional organizations, from the national organization in Canada, as well as the home rule people of Greenland and the various regional leaders of Alaska. It will be not a very formal meeting, but the main purpose will be that in order to further the spirit of cooperation and the spirit of joint and keen interest in the future of the Arctic, that the leadership should have an opportunity to get together, not only that one time, but hopefully further also in the future have a chance to discuss mutual concerns and problems. Akkaluk was talking about the Jameson land issue from Greenland, and that's one issue that we have also dealt with in the ICC Executive Council. There was some concern among the Inuit of Canada on that specific project, and at a meeting we had in Kuujjuaq in December last year, we had a thorough discussion on this issue and passed a resolution that provided an opportunity for the Canadian Inuit to be able to more closely monitor what is going on about the resource development in Greenland. And there will probably be a forum whereby the Canadian Inuit will have access to obtain all information related to the resource development projects in Greenland. And that, of course, must be vice versa, that also Greenland has an opportunity to be informed and to have updated information on any resource development projects in Canada that could have implications for the environment between Canada and Greenland. We also passed a resolution that formed a commission to monitor any transportation in the Arctic of oil, gas, and minerals. That has been a concern of ours for quite a few years now. We know it is a very strong concern of the various industries, the oil industries, the gas industries, that once you get the oil or gas from the ground, how do you get it out to the markets? And that is one area of concern that is indeed very important, because transportation could be very hazardous in the Arctic, and the ICC has thus initiated a review of present technology in that area. Will also come up with various recommendations on that specific issue. It's a work that is being started now, and we will present it again to the next General Assembly in order to continue it and hopefully have the support of all the members of the ICC in pursuing that project. Before I conclude, I should also mention the major project that we have been undertaking since the 1983 General Assembly in Frobisher Bay. That is the Alaska Native Review Commission. As you are aware, that the Alaskan natives, the Alaskan Inuit, had their land claim settlement back in 1971. An act was passed by the American Congress called the Alaska Native Claims Settlement Act. And there are some provisions to that act that not all Inupiat of Alaska and not all natives are very happy about. And as this piece of legislation is the first kind ever for an indigenous people, a native people of a country or of a state, we initiated this project to review this piece of legislation in a way where as many people that are affected by this act could have an opportunity to raise their concerns. Mr. Thomas Berger has now, for the past 2 years, been traveling extensively in Alaska, and he had public hearings in some 60 villages in Alaska where more than 500 people, maybe 600-700 people has had an opportunity to raise their concerns to Mr. Berger on the Land Claims Settlement Act of Alaska. This piece of work is almost finished. Mr. Berger is writing his report this spring, and the report will be published this summer. And I'm very sure that this report and the recommendations from the report as for Alaska will be very important to the ongoing land claims negotiations in Canada and to the ongoing negotiations for the ownership of land and the subsurface in Greenland, as well as it will have significant importance worldwide for all indigenous peoples throughout the world, in North America, Central America, South America, and in Australia and other parts of the world, where Native peoples are also trying to obtain a right to land and a right to hunt and to reassure the traditional ownership of various land areas. So this major work, I'm sure, will have great importance also to the Inuit of Canada in the future negotiations on land. This report we will, among other things, present to the United Nations. The ICC has a United Nations status as a non-governmental organization, and we plan to bring this report to the UN body, the only UN body that deals with Native peoples. It's a working group called Working Group on Indigenous Populations that meets every summer, and we're planning to go to that meeting this summer to present this report from Alaska, and hopefully we will be able to also provide and gather information on the status of land claims negotiations in Canada and Greenland. This body is the only international United Nations body that deal with issues related to Native peoples throughout the world. As I said, we will have the next General Assembly from the July 29th through August 5th in 1986 in Kotzebue, Alaska. We are very hopeful that this time around we will succeed in having attendance by the Siberian Inuit. It has been very hard, as you know, to get participation from Siberia in our conference, but since our last General Assembly, we have identified various ways whereby we hopefully and maybe can have participation by our Siberian fellow Inuit in 1986. At this point, we're not quite sure whether we will succeed, but this is one thing that we're pursuing very much, and hopefully for the first time in the short history of ICC, we will have all the Inuit of this world gathered at one place in 1986. And finally, I should also mention that we are having our next Executive Council meeting planned here in Canada in Tuktoyaktuk, the second week of June. So we will hope that we'll have an opportunity to meet with people from COPE, from that area, during our meeting. Just finally, let me thank again for this opportunity to address this ITC meeting and to address all the delegates here. I sincerely hope that the ITC from this meeting on also still will be an active member of the Inuit Circumpolar Conference, that all the delegates that are present here, that when you get back home from this meeting to your various communities and regions, that you will have the Inuit Circumpolar Conference in mind, and also on a local basis, on a regional basis, on a community level, try to participate in the work of the Inuit Circumpolar Conference. And from our part, we will do whatever we can with the means we have, with the funds we have, to keep you informed of the work of the ICC, and thus ask you to participate actively in their international Inuit work. I think it's very important that all levels are actively participating in order to have a viable organization worldwide, and it's very important for the international community, for the United Nations, for the governments, and various international organizations to know for sure that the ICC is comprised of all Inuit throughout the Arctic, and that it has the full support of all Inuit. Buenas.
Would you be willing to stay another 5 minutes if they have any questions?
Sure.
Kini duit siap apa ira maguni apa ikan daun nak tu aku ni orang itu dan eksibaktinya tu David
36 Tidak salah teo. Okay. Uminga apa yang kamu kau juga. Teko inurima silap dua rima me picu tiga lugu katema yuning picu lugu. Una tu kesilak kau ya kalau rasio me tu yur Inuit ayam nak katang ini tanah. Kisumi ayam nak terkalak si mga piluar tumi. Tu kisiya sama pilangin mga tu kisiya kan niluar mo tu naktak.
Well, there are various reasons. From the very first meeting of the ICC, there was an invitation sent through the so-called diplomatic channels to the Soviet Union in order to have participation from Siberia. And this invitation was turned down again in 1980, and we also submitted an invitation to the Siberian Inuit for the meeting in 1983. The only way we can have a formal invitation is to go through their governments. The Canadian government, for instance, has been very supportive and helpful in getting our invitation to the Soviet government. As an example, I can mention that for the last meeting we had in Frobisher Bay, we had the indication that there would be Siberian participation until a few weeks before the General Assembly. But the message we got through the Foreign Affairs in Ottawa from the Soviet Union was that the ICC General Assembly agenda had political overtones. In the sense that the position was from the Soviet Union that our meeting was too political, whereas if it had been a cultural event, a cultural meeting, there would have been a greater chance to have Siberian participation. And in order to have Siberian participation next time around, we're focusing on the fact that the ICC is a cultural organization. It is an organization of one people, one culture, one language, and we hope that even though we are discussing political issues in our organization, the cultural part of it, the cultural events, is a very major part of our meetings. So we're still trying, but also the relationship between the two superpowers, the Soviet Union and the United States, also plays a role in our efforts to get in touch with our fellow Inuit in Siberia.
Peter Unuk.
Right here.
Okay. Gewoon nog zwak. Goeie nummer toe. Hans-Pavia Rosing. Ook een leeuw naar Kouwman. Toen nog door op Kouwman door Kouwsingen. Goeie nummer. Gewoon nog zwak. Kisianing. Koning. Isi magsaksew daw kanira yaktuning. Sakit chicken yang juga makau dengan naik tikulu lagi, makau segini yang terka. Sibuk lekparimnya nama tiak tempat sugib lagu Inuit Leaders Summit. Kami kuno sibuk tiu unut, inyung unut.
takunangat pingasuna yaktuksaw yunin. Alaska, Greenland, Amrukta, Canada. Katima jutau yun nakayakumak tuksaw yok tamak kunungap. Ito waktu magaw na yakasugibligu katima kawakaktan niya itay kani Coachby, Alaska mi. Isi magsaksiyok palian na yakko apta tamani yun aptinyi ubaguluhin yung tigut nalunang imat tamani Canada mi ikayok tao yung makatak palian apta tamatuma timikotik jo apta miksanot ICC ngunik tao yup taimnya ubagut inyok tigut katimak jo akto tigut tamani siburik tigut katima jo tigi yun nakumak tangan isi magsaksiyok tigi badaya kakang niyakaw aptigo mani yun aptinyi yun abuta kasing niptalo nagmanik ilang mani yun aptinyi gabro mata kasing niptamiksa pidyo tigi bluit amma ukwa ajiging ituta ukawsiri kawyang itailangin ukawsiri kanyardigo makaw bluit isi magsaksiyok utaw badaya ako bluit lo pidyo tigi kaw blugo ularaktang neo miksanut Canada miuti ullu aku gitter miullu exchange bisingune raktaw yun tamakuningap igi valdaya rahang niksawni akkawli rapta siwun acceptin yitay kanni tamakkuan unangan ni ubagut ilitivalde ronna rapta nalunang immat aku gitter miul ilinyak tulirin yung miksanut ilinyak tulirin ikong igok tusakatta rapta kawyi maglakok tutigulum Canada miunit ilinyak tulirin yung miksano akit yaksiman iksamariyalog matatamangi Canada min uvalunit igluksualirin yung miksanot tayo man utik taklutu uglaka katigiya katakopta ubaguta Canada miutigut igluksuakang yung miksanon igluksuakatiyakan yung miksanon ilitivalde runnak mayu tayo kunangat ako kitong igluksuako tinginit sana wag ningitalo sana yawag ningitalo miksanon amma rumakkununga pirok paliakat taktunut renewable resources kunirakaw yunut ilitivalde runnak mayu tawag kunangat ako kitong may uniubago Canada may utaktigut Canada may utigut utakunu yagal waktu inyok tigut pilirin ak pumalik liwit makkuninga pivalde yun yung miksanon economic development fisheries makwa ikhalulirin yung blue shrimps kingulirin yung blue miksanon ilitivalde runnak nakputa miksanon pidyo tigi bluit ang ikatigit siya makiguman na nakluguli ubang anang minyo kauti yung makawya katamakuninga exchange visits between Canada and Greenland Inuit mga aksima yung tabong nga kung naksibalang naksaw katalag lutik uglak lutik ako yaktong lutik government na yung nakluting ilang mana government night kasait tabong nga katang matam lutik pagtulig yung tamang ilangin tabang aksima nga tumawang pagtulig ako yaktok tulig inyok tigut taubagod ITC mi utak tigut tayo man napiyagar hang na ako na kapasiwun exception niya tayo kanip ilitivalde ko manakput ayaw na palde ko manakput tamalik liwit ko yun na may iksima utak
Thank you, Peter. John Hicks. John I. Hicks.
Sunavadayama. Okay, for clarification, I want to go back to the first requirements of the ICC and its involvement in the Arctic Pilot Project. I guess I'm of two minds. I look at the time frame that was issued during the negotiations from the Greenlandic point of view, but we have two groups here represented, the High Arctic Committee on Oil and Gas and the Hudson Bay Oil and Gas Committee of, as you very well know, is getting very active in the very near future. We as a development corporation propose to be actively involved in that. And I guess I would like to know at this time what position the ICC plays in the future involvement of transportation of oil and gas requirements of the High Arctic at this particular time, and the kinds of roles that we could ask them to play in a positive direction. Thank you.
I mentioned during my presentation the commission that we have set up specifically to specifically focus on the aspects of transportation with oil and gas and minerals in the Arctic. The position so far by the ICC is a position that has come from the various member organizations of the ICC, from the ITC, from various areas where the Inuit have been directly affected by transportation plans. So the position briefly has been that no major transportation of oil, gas, and minerals should take place unless certain requirements were fulfilled. In my mind, it has been, in terms of a more detailed position, the ICC position has been, to some degree, pretty weak, which is one of the reasons why we have chosen to set up a commission to specifically focus on that area, because it is an area that it's important to the Inuit, but it's also an area where the industry and the governments as well are looking very closely into it. So the position so far, the present position of the ICC in that respect is that transportation of oil, gas, and minerals should not in any way harm the environment, should not in any way harm the game of the Arctic, the marine mammals, and the number of ships on a yearly basis should be very strictly controlled, and also the seasons where such transportation take place should also be very closely monitored by the Inuit themselves. It should be only in the summer periods. There should be no ice-breaking tankers transportation. So in order to more fully and clearly indicate our very firm position, it is necessary that we thoroughly discuss this issue amongst ourselves, and I hope this discussion can be initiated and can take place within